Good morning, and good morning. I tell you, this morning between Facebook and StreamYard, nobody wanted to let me in. But guess what? I'm in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Crazy, 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 crazy. But good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. I did. And I don't know. I've been trying to make all of these things work this morning. I've been up a long time trying to make sure I had a good word for you this morning. Hopefully, we're going to have some fun. I'm going to wait till some people come in and have some fun with the word and let them know that I'm still on the job. I've been under uh, whatever you want to call it, trying to get over a cold, and I'm over it. I am over it. I'm feeling much better, and so I'm excited about that. And it took me basically a whole week. That snowstorm helped me. Have you ever been through a snowstorm? Ah, child, please. I'm not interested. Everybody was excited around here except Sandra Lee Gary Winborn. Winnie. Dr. Winnie wasn't excited about us having a snowstorm. So the fact that I took it to rest, relax, release, that's what I did. I did all of those things that made it where I feel better today, finally. And I didn't really feel bad. I didn't have a fever. I wasn't doing anything but having a cough and sounding like a frog. So the cough is gone and the frogginess in my voice is gone. So I'm getting back to right, getting back to right. What did you do over the weekend? What'd you do if you lived in this area and you had snow, or you lived in the South? Because snow was all the way in Texas and South Florida. So I think Mississippi and Louisiana had it as well. You know, come on. It seemed like we're reversing, where the South is the North and the North is the South. Let's try to help it along here and understand this. I'm not interested at all, at all, at all. But anyway, today we got a new word, and I'm excited about the word. And I've been all in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and I've come up with this. Apparently, it was like a broadcast by Emily Brewster, Amin Shea, and Peter Sokolowski, and they came up with this thing called a matter of words, or word matters. Coming up with the whole thing for word matters, and today's word is eponym. Eponym. Eponyms. Eponyms means when you're notorious enough to get a word named after you. That's a big deal. I've never had a word named after me, but I'm quite sure that we know of many things that we have in our existence of living every day that the word may have materialized not originally as we thought it should have, but it came about, and all of a sudden we have a word. So I have several of those words this morning that I thought I'd have fun with before we break the word down. But let me make sure my phone is on silent, because I was working with the phone finally to try to get it to connect to my computer, and to give me, I had to get a code to come in. So I did. I did. So today's word is eponym. Eponym, or eponyms, which is just with the being plural. But it says, I'm going to read a little bit of what I found in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and it says, I'm Emily Brewster, and Word Matters is produced by Merriam-Webster in collaboration with the New England Public Media. And it says on each episode they take a word, and it says she is along with Amin Shea and Peter Sokolowski, put this thing together on understanding words, their origin, and what they're all about. And so she says, I explore some aspect of English language from the dictionaries and the vantage point. We often discuss how a particular English word came to be. Was it born among English's um, earliest Germanic roots, or did it come from the French, spoken by those Norman invasion folks? it says, or was it produced, or was it a product of smashing or mashing two existing words together? And sometimes that's how we do get new words. But anyway, they said the source, nonetheless, still is called eponyms. And it says they're going to go through a few, and they said they got a note from someone who wanted to know what an eponym was. And so they started explaining. And so here's a couple of them. It says Ambrose sideburns. Okay, ended up, how do we get sideburns? It came from Ambrose Burnside, which was a Civil War veteran. And he said he was the governor of Rhode Island. It says he's better known for his expressive facial hair than he is for any of his diplomatic or military achievements. It said he had a lot of facial hair that grew on the side of his face, and his name was eventually turned around. First, these things, this beautiful hair that he had, and there was a great picture of him. If anybody wants to Google George Ambrose Burnside, you're going to see his picture, and he has just this mountainous of hair on his face, mustache, and on his chin. And it says originally they called him Burnside, which was his, last name, but they changed it around and they didn't like it that way. And they said they called him Burnside Whiskers. They thought that was too much. And then it says they eventually got switched around to be called Sideburns. Sideburns. That's where sideburns came from. And I'm quite sure you can think of so many things that we have that are out here right now. Good morning, Joan. How are you? Good to see you in the space. There's so many things that we live around that we don't realize came about because they were named after somebody. It could be our medicine. It could be bridges that we go over. It could be monuments. It could be food that we eat. There's just so many things, and we never knew that there was such a word that names what those things are called, but they become famous. And so we end up just realizing. So I wrote a couple of them down, and I thought you all might get some humor out of them. In fact, I took the test early this morning, and actually I passed the test because they did have a test that you could take to figure out if you knew or could figure out where these words came from. And it says these are words that are named after people. And so the first one it says is Leotard Giles, okay, or Jules. It says he was a professional what? And they asked you, what was he? Was he a professional dancer? Was he an aerialist? What was he? And then it finally tells you that he was an acrobat artist, okay? But he wore leotards. And, we know that leotards, the modern day they don't call them leotards anymore. That was the old-fashioned way. The new folks in the 21st century, they call them leggings. Same meaning, but form-fitting, tight-fitting, I would say leg wear for the purpose of being able to move and doing things that are athletic. So I thought that was kind of cool. So here's another one. It says there was a month that was named after a Roman emperor, okay? And his name was Augustus Caesar. So what do you think month that would have been if he was named Augustus Caesar? And they didn't like that, so they had to change the month. So the month ultimately was changed, and it says the Roman Senate changed the name because they didn't really, it says originally it was called Sextilius, Sextillis, Sextilius. They didn't want that to be a month of the year, so that's how eventually it got to be named after the person that it was named for, which was Augustus. So they chopped off the us and they just put August or August, if you pronounce it how it is now. So that's kind of cool, isn't it? It's kind of cool how names come about. Here's another one. It says, I'm going to ask this question, Joan, I know you probably know it. What luxurious word is named after a hotel owner? When we think of the best hotel to stay at in the world that most of us have never stayed at, what would it be? Would it be Hilton? Would it be Marriott? Would it be, Motel 6? What would it be? You know? It's just a weird. It's a weird thing that's how it got to be what it was, and it started out with the word ritzy. Okay, and ritzy was known through Europe as being having a meaning of being impressively obstinate. It says ostensibly, ostentatiously fancy and stylish, meaning that they put it out there as being the richest place to stay if you're going to a hotel. Because as I have been through it, and I think I stayed there one time. I don't know how I stayed there, but it was some reason. But it wasn't long. It was like 2 days. The Ritz, there you go. And the Ritz had, I remembered having gold fixtures, and chandeliers and glass tables, and everything was just too pretty for what I was used to staying in. But that's the kind of thing that it says. Okay, that one was that one. Let's see, I got some more. It says a frequent eater. I love this. That's right, Ritz Carlton. Yes, but they dropped the Carlton came after. The Ritz part was talking about the opulence that it had, and the fact that it made people feel like they were above the upper crust. They were a part of the highest echelon possible in Europe. And eventually, of course, they expanded worldwide, and you can certainly find, the Ritz Carltons here in the States, in the United States. Here's another one. It says a frequent eater of a light meal. In the 18th century, he was a nobleman called John Montague. And John Montague was the fourth earl of a certain thing. And he says, but he loved to gamble. But what he hated to do was get up from the gambling table. It ended up that this was his meal that he liked a slice of beef on 2 slices of bread. And so he eventually became the Earl of Sandwich. Can't make this stuff up. They said they went back through history, and that's what it shows. He refused to leave the table. And so they ultimately called him the Earl of Sandwich. That's where sandwich came from. And they ask you, was he known for salad or a hamburger or a sandwich or yogurt? Well, you can certainly put the yogurt out, because I don't know what yogurt would have been back in the time in the fourth, because it says he was the 4th Earl in the 18th century. I don't know if they had yogurt back then. I imagine that they had cream, but I can't imagine them having yogurt. The Earl of Sandwich, that's what he was called, the Earl of Sandwich. Isn't that crazy? That's just crazy. Here's another one. It says, which of these was named for the century physician who either had his interest in stirrup, syringes, machetes, or the guillotine? And he was known, eventually famously used, that's what they called him. And he was a Frenchman, and it was all about the French Revolution and how they would get rid of people quickly. So what did they use? They used the guillotine. So the guillotine was faster than using an axe. Isn't that wild? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. That's just wild. It had me laughing when I thought about it. I said, wow, that's crazy. So it says that basically he thought that would be the easiest way to get rid of people and not worry about it, because you could get rid of more of them at a quicker rate than if you kept putting just down one axe, because it took too many chops, I guess. I don't know what it is. It says, which of these best describes the portrait made by Etienne de Silhouette? Well, right there, silhouette just already tells you. And the selection that they give you was tiny paint by dots, the profile out from a dark material, exaggerated facial features, or an unrecognizably abstract. Well, I can tell you right now, silhouette just already tells you. And I remember when you go back in the history books, you could see those silhouettes, and because they said he was a frugal man, a cheap man. So to take the whole picture would cost too much. So all he did was have it where all they gave was the outline of a person's portrait. That's it. Nothing else. Isn't that wild? It says it was notoriously frugal, 18th century French treasurer, to the point where it says only a silhouette would do, nothing else. Nothing else. He didn't want the whole picture. So even if they had pictures posted of people, you had to guess who they were by their silhouette, but not by their actual face that you could see. You might even just have the top portion of their body, maybe just the bust, and that's it. I tell you, this was such a cool find this morning when I was looking up stuff. It says simple and affordable shadow of a portrait was all known to be a silhouette, and it was just enough. Not anymore. Now here's another one. It says the active ingredient in which of these was named for Jean Nicolet or Nicolt. It says who helped basically popularize it. It says, was it toothpaste, tea, tobacco, or bleach? Well, you pretty much know that nicotine is a part of the cigarette process, okay, or smoking process. So tobacco, he was known for tobacco. And it says that he introduced tobacco to the French noble people, it says like the noble society. I guess that was supposed to be the upper crust again during the mid 16th century. And the term nicotine was given to its active ingredient in 1828. You can't even make this stuff up. This is just crazy. But I'm just taken aback by the fact that there's things that were named after people. Some things, you can understand bridges and stuff because it's in our time and we understand it. Like, the Martin Luther King Boulevards and, the different kinds of Statue of Liberty, all those things. We understand that. But some of the other stuff, you don't even know how they eventually meandered around to get to words that we all understand. And we don't realize that they were based on a person. They were based on someone's prior life. Here's another one. It says, British military officer James Thomas Brodenell, who popularized a knitted waistcoat, was the seventh Earl. In the civil, and it says he was in the Crimean War, and he came back from war sporting this certain kind of swag. Okay. Good morning, Miss Rosie. How are you? So the swag was called a cardigan sweater. That's what he chose. And they had blazer, they had parka. These were the other selections, or a duster. They had the other selections that you could have chose from. But ironically enough, I chose blazer, but no, it was the cardigan that was made famous by this British officer. Let me give you one more. I had so many of them. I loved them. It says a meaningful bomb, mine, M-I-N-E, or shell fragments. Which of these words is named of an English artillery officer? Because they said that's how he rolled. Good morning, Cheryl. How are you? Good to see. Interesting facts this morning. Thank you for digging into more of the child. I'm having fun. I said maybe I need to get all into the words and go further down into the words, not just giving them the meaning for today, but what they mean years ago. When did they come about? The fact is, this was the 18th century and the 17th century, or before. They have one that was 16 BC. Whoa, come on now. So the one that talks about this army officer, the selections were a grenade, napalm, ammunition, or sharple, and it was basically sharple, when you're, you end up, it says his name was Henry Sharpnell, and it says he developed the Chinook project titled Filled with Bullets and Rigged to Explode when it neared the enemy lines, giving out shrapnel. So therefore people would end up dying or being maimed by this thing that was exploding in their presence. And you always hear people from war always talking about, from war zones where they've gone over landmines and everything, and they end up telling you about the shrapnel that they were subject to, and some of the remnants remained in their bodies because they couldn't be retrieved. Here's the last one. I mean, I had so many of these. I loved it, and I hope you don't mind. It says a drug, morphine, was named for Greek, and it basically was to speed up certain things. It was a powerful painkiller. What do you think that drug was? And they didn't. I didn't think I even wrote down. Oh yeah, I did. I wrote down the things. Says it could be given for speed. If it could given for war, it could be that it was used for seasickness or dreams. What do you think it was? First of all, the word is morphine. And secondly, it is basically to help you have deep dreams, and it makes you dull to the pain. And most people who are probably very, very sick may have a period of morphine before they die. So that is one of the drugs that I know that they use. So I had so many of these, and I just thought that this was such a cool kind of thing to do. But I mean, I think you all can come up. Morphine, that's right. Thank you, Joan. Morphine. I think you all probably can come up with so many things that you see every day and don't realize that, they become used to our vernacular. We're used to saying them and seeing them, but we don't know how they started. I think maybe 2-3 months ago, I did the whole MacGyver thing, and how you all you have to do is say MacGyver and people understand that you probably Mr. and Mrs. Fix It. You can get things done, only because you're going to try it. You're going to go get a wrench, and you're going to go get this. You're going to set the car up on high, so you can see everything. MacGyver. That's what MacGyver did. So anyway, that was the fun part of it. I said I'm going to start doing a little bit more work. I do work every time I give you one of these, but I'm going to start doing that. I don't know if y'all like it, but I've enjoyed it this morning, even just that discovery. So it says, what is an eponym? I want to make sure I say it right, because when you listen to it, if you have any kind of your own little colloquialisms, you end up saying it kind of funny. And so that's why I say it a few times every time I say it. Eponym. It says you might not realize it, but you use eponyms all the time. An eponym is when the names of activities, projects, objects, and discoveries take their name from a particular person. It says in modern usage, it can also be when a brand name becomes synonymous with that item, such as Air Jordans. Okay. What else? What do you have? I can think of Air Jordans, and you don't even have to say that it's Nike. Nike just kind of gave him, and even to this day, he's making money off of that. Just that agreement he made years ago, he's still making money. But there's so many others. It says, so this eponym is one for whom or which something is or is believed to be named. It says a name as a drug or a disease based on, derived from the eponym, or who discovered it, who found it, who was associated with it so much that ultimately it became the thing that's how you discuss it. And sometimes it takes a lot of words broken down into one word and people remember it just that quickly. It says first known eponym was 1846. A person after whom or a discovery, an invention, or placed is named or thought to be named. That's when the word actually was given, established. Yes, come on, Joan. Yes, established. It says a name or a noun formed after a person. So it's really good stuff. You can't do nothing with that but like it, love it. The fact that even some of us may have, when we leave here, a nickname. So when we talk about some of these, An epithet, which is EPITHET, is any word or phrase applied to a person or a thing to describe an actual or an attributed quality, like Richard the Lion-Hearted. Okay, we always can remember that. It's an epithet that we can remember, even though we may not want to. But eventually we just associate it with what we know to be our understanding of the word. And sometimes when we have this whole idea of understanding what an eponym is, we can make sense of it. It makes it more sense. So the whole thing of looking at this, the epithet looks at the appellation or the appellation, the sobriquet, the designation, the nickname, the name, the tag, the title, the personalized. Come on now. We personalize everything. After a while, we don't call people by their given name. We may call them by what they may do. Like I have a friend, every time I see her, I say, okay, chef. I call her a chef because that's what she does. And she loves it. She said, come on now, or caterer. Sometimes I call her caterer. Miss Caterer, what we have on the menu today? How are we going to work out this project we're going to do? So eventually you just learn that, it's very frequent that many of us may have our own, eponyms and don't realize it, but somebody's giving it to us, and we may be known by those things more than we are known by our original names or our birth names, just because somebody associated so much of that to us. They eventually we just have it. Then we go to the P of eponym, and we come up with pseudonym. I break it down: pseudonym or pseudonym, if you say it fast. And a pseudonym is a fictitious name. That's just what I was talking about. Used especially by an author to conceal their identity. It may be a pen name. How many people do you know that write, and they may write under a totally different name than they actually are? They may write anonymously as their real name. And for the longest time, I think, I'm trying to think of her real name. I don't even know it anymore, but she did all of the, I can't remember the names now. I just saw it and forgot all about it, but I remember it in a minute. But Harry Potter, all of her stuff. She went under another name for years, made the money, became probably million and billionaire under another name, just assuming that that's the way she wanted to, for everybody to read her writing and not know who she was and accept it. And ultimately now it's synonymous where you don't even have to remember her name. You just say Harry Potter. You say, oh, her. So when we have a pseudonym, we look at the aliases, we look at a stage names, the handle or the nickname that people give us, or we give others. We give others those names. When we move on in our word of eponym, we look at original. I believe that when we are original, we may have another name, okay, that somebody gave us. It says of relating to or constituting an origin or beginning. Those people call every day. I apologize for that. Every single day. I don't know who they are, but it's somebody trying to buy my house or sell me a vacation, which I never answer. But anyway, when we're looking at the origin, it says being the first instance or source from which a copy, a reproduction, or a translation is or can be made. And sometimes we look at, when we see original stuff, we understand who originated it. When did it start? And sometimes we can't even go back to the origination because it goes too far back or too hard to research. Even if we think of our own identity, trying to do, ancestry. I can get back far on my mother's side, but my father's side, I can't. So those are the kinds of things that really look at, can I find what my original, full ancestry is? And I currently cannot, but I signed up for an ancestry class. So I'm going to see what that will do. And maybe they'll give me some tricks of what I don't know. But anyway, we look at original as being that from which a copy, a reproduction, or a translation is made. First, it's going to be first, the earliest, the primary, the untouched. How do we ever get to something that's been untouched? Because we see now that the younger generation will change what was touched earlier and change it around. Where the word will start here and it will have a totally another meaning later on. So we talk about it being the real, the individualized, the starting point, the pioneer, and the beginning. That's what original is. And when we're looking at eponym, we don't even know always where we got these words from, but there is an origin of some sort. There was an original. Somebody thought it was necessary, or to cut down all of a lot of verbiage, they changed it to one word. Next, we move on in eponym and we come up with the N. Oh, organize. Come on, Joan. That's a good word, to organize something. Next, we look at the nickname. How many of us have a nickname? Do you have a nickname? Write your nickname in the thread there. My nickname, I have several of them. One is Sand, then they call it Sandy Bandy. Somebody else calls it Sandy Mandy. I have Dr. Winnie. I have or just Winnie, Winnie, and it's so funny how I got the name Winnie is that everybody in my Rotary Club eventually had to call me Winnie because when I joined, there were 3 Sandras. And so then they always got mixed up. And 2 wanted to be called, one Sandra, Sandy. And they said, what you want to be called when I joined? I said, Winnie. So now I'm also known as Winnie. They call me Winnie and I answer. Glowworm. Okay, come on now. I love it. Glowworm, notable. Yes. So a nickname for me, it says a familiar or humorous name, okay, given to a person or thing instead of as their real name. And most of us after that. So yours is Glowworm. Joan, do you have a nickname? Cheryl, do you have a nickname? Carney, do you have a nickname? I know you're there. So nicknames are pretty. They're pretty fun, pretty usual, not unusual. It says the by names and the appellation. Those are all things that pretty much say it started with something. What do we have? So notable is good. Thank you, Joan. But if you don't have a nickname, we'll move on. But then we move on to our why. And the why of eponym comes to your. And the reason I chose your, Joe, okay. J-O, wow. I never called you Joe. I always call you Joan. But now I may, if you let me. I like Joe. I do. I like Joe. So your is the word I chose for my why of eponym. And it says belonging to or associated with a person or people that the speaker is addressing. So it's yours. I give you your name, your nickname, or your real name, It says your or her, his, its, my, our, theirs, they, them. It's always something that's going to be different from us. It says my family nickname, is Coonbugs for the 5 of us. Wow. And our last name is Coon, Koon. Wow. Well, we were called the Garys for the longest time because we went out as singers in New York at Christmas time. We probably were good enough. I'm not going to lie. We were good enough to have been professional singers, and probably had my father lived, he died in his early 50s, maybe 50, 53. And he had a stroke, his first stroke at 49. So we didn't get them, but he always knew how talented we were. But we would go out around New York and we would sing, in upstate New York. We lived in the Albany, Schenectady, Troy area. So we would go around and we sing for people in the snow, like the snow we had the other day. But we would have 26 inches, and we'd put on our snow boots and snow suits and hats and gloves and everything. And we'd go out and we would sing in 4-part harmony. In 4-part harmony, we would do it. And but our nicknames was, oh, those Gary kids are coming by, the Gary singers. So we were known as the Gary singers for the longest time. But as they were the older ones, went off into the military or out to live their lives. And of course, I just ended up being a singer by myself. But we did that. It says, so anyway, that was your. So we know that there is definitely a your for all of us. Now, the last letter I have in eponym is the M. And the M for me is moniker. If you think of a moniker is a name. Plain and simple. It's a name. And it's your name. It's someone else's name. And you don't even have to add much to it. It's like, what's in a name? And a lot of times there's humor in the name, there's love in the name, there's care in the name, kindness in the name. We may be calling somebody out of their name only because that's the way they act. Okay. But for the most part, we try to stay on the level of meaning. Okay, good. That's a good word. Meaning. I have moniker. So I said in the nickname, it could be the sobriquet or sobriquet. It says it could be a la el alias. It could be the epithet, or it could be surnames. All of those things having to do with who we are personally. We may not understand that people have given us a moniker, or we may encourage them. We may encourage them to give us a moniker or our nickname. We may tell them what to call us and not have a problem with it. None. I don't have a problem with you calling me San or Sandy or Sandra, which is my real name. In fact, sometimes I have to remember, that is my real name. But because everybody calls me so many different names, I don't get bent out of shape out of the names that I hear. I'm just happy that I've been able to make fun and happiness with other people, understanding names. And, to me, this was a fun lesson for me to prepare, only because I didn't even think that I knew that much about the word. When I saw the word, I said, that's a good word. But then after I looked further into it and looking at its origin and how long it had been around and what it was good for or good to, and I said, wow, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting that we use these eponyms every day and don't realize that there's a connection. If we were to chase the word down, we would probably find out, man, that started back in, 1762 or 1591, whatever it is. But there's an origin of words. And thank goodness that we have wordsmiths, that they keep track of words. And I love them. I mean, I think words are just a way to talk to anybody. That's one of the reasons why I do Are You Stuck? And I believe that we can be stuck if we don't evolve with not only knowing the old words, but adding new words to it so that our vocabulary continues to increase and we can have conversation with anybody. We can even understand other people without them needing to explain too much. We just get it. At one time I used to study the roots of the word, and the root of the word sometimes would tell you what area you're in, like the medicines, the medicines or the psych area. It used to tell you that you're in the right zone for understanding that all words that start with these letters and this way have a connection to the ultimate idea that it's in medicine or it's in psychology or it's in science or, whatever. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this new approach today. It was fun. Took me a little bit longer to do because I started it last night and then I got up this morning and finished it up. but I thought it was a fun way to try to just do words from the real, okay, words from the history to the now, and it's made it kind of fun. Listen, y'all have a wonderful day. No charge here, but if you want to, you just really want to do something, you can hit share and let it be shared through your connections, your contacts, your friends, and invite them to join us, because I know I'm the time frame when a lot of people see me later in the day, because sometimes I can look back at the reels and they've done well, but they didn't do necessarily a lot of people early on, but we loved it. Very enjoyable. Thank you, Joan. I love you, love everybody. Gloria, let's see, Cheryl, Miss Rosie, everybody that usually comes in. Maurice, I must mention his name because he generally comes in between. But listen, I'll have another word on Wednesday. You all have a safe day. Be good to yourself and whatever it is. And look around and see what eponyms you know about, because you know they're there. Eponyms. See if you know. Find, or look up one. Look up one for yourself. Okay? Love you. Thank you. Bye-bye.